Canby. Welcome to our kitchen.
And what's cooking in Canby? So what's cooking today, Mr. Perez?
Jambalaya. I'm Greg, and this is my wife, Kristie. And today we are going to prepare jambalaya. Can you tell us something about it, honey?
Well, jambalaya has its roots in Africa. And many foods that are southern-based have their roots in Caribbean cooking or African cooking. Now, the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to get things started by cooking up what we fondly call in New Orleans, the Holy Trinity. So we're going to start our jambalaya. I'm going to get started right now cooking a cup of chopped celery, a cup of chopped green pepper, and 2 cups of sweet onion.
Now, where are these onions from?
Oh, these are Vidalia onions.
And why don't we have Walla Walla?
They're not in season quite yet, but I'll have you know that Vidalia onions are protected. The name is protected. They're from a certain region of Georgia, Vidalia, Georgia, and they are protected. Their name is just like Walla Walla onions, and they're a really mild, sweet onion. They don't have a really long shelf life, but they're a very sweet, mild one. So I'm going to go ahead and start that right now.
Before you go, let me go ahead and turn this on.
Thank you, dear. I've got some olive oil heating up right now, and I'm just going to take these ingredients, toss them into the olive oil, and we'll let those saute while Greg is taking care of some of the other ingredients.
I'm going to go ahead and cut some of the sausage. We got everything here local. Everything we purchase here is local, and including the sausage, and it's more of a Louisiana sausage that is hot. So this will improve the taste of the jambalaya.
The chicken, we're also going to be adding cooked chicken. Chicken is fairly mild, so the andouille sausage is going to give a little kick to our jambalaya. You can also use boudin. If you couldn't find the andouille sausage, I think that maybe chorizo would work.
Chorizo would work.
All right. I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic to our vegetables too.
Now, honey, can you tell me why we picked jambalaya?
Oh, absolutely. Last year for Greg's birthday, I took him to the New Orleans School of Cooking. We had an absolutely wonderful time, and we had a fabulous cooking class with Big Kevin.
Now, Big Kevin is 6'9" and weighs 400 pounds. So if you can see the difference between our height, when Big Kevin came into the kitchen, he was this tall.
He was a foot taller than Greg.
Exactly.
Yes, aptly named, I might say.
So back to the choice.
Oh, we had such a good time at the New Orleans School of Cooking. I highly recommend it if you're ever in New Orleans. You're going to be, I think there must have been about 40 of us in the audience.
Yes, there was.
Big Kevin was cooking jambalaya, and he also cooked up gumbo, bread pudding, and pralines, a wonderful dessert. The people that are in the audience are from all of the United States. Everybody is extremely friendly. It's very informal, and Big Kevin is just a wonderfully friendly man. We had such a good time interacting with the people at our table. And while he's cooking and after he cooks, you sample absolutely everything he cooks. So
that wasn't the only dish we had.
No.
We prepared gumbo, and we made bread pudding, and we also made pralines.
I forgot about the bread pudding. I mentioned those 2 things.
Yes, but it was delicious. Now, can you tell me do you have any roots, honey? I know you grew up in Silverton, but where are your people from?
Yes, as we say in the South, where are your people from?
Instead of, where do your parents come from?
Where are your people from? Yes, my family has deep, deep roots in the South, and we predate the Civil War. And last summer, Greg and I, as we do every summer, we made a trip to Alabama, but we went to visit family in northern Alabama.
In Tuscumbia.
In Tuscumbia, Alabama, and we slept in the bedroom and in the bed that belonged to my great-great-great-grandmother, whose name was Molly Davis, who was a niece of Jefferson Davis. We also went to the cemetery, and that was a really fascinating experience.
You know, there is so much history in that little small, well, it's kind of a bit large town of Tuscumbia that It was amazing of the Civil War areas that are set up, of the grave sites of the soldiers. It goes way back in time, and very historical.
Yes,
very historical.
It was really fascinating.
Who was the other young lady that lived there?
Oh, Helen Keller, excuse me, I almost drew a blank. Helen Keller is from Tuscumbia, Alabama, and lived about perhaps a block down the street from the house that my mother was born in.
And the house that we stayed in was very, very old. So when you walked into this house, whatever you want to call it, everything in there was an antique. So there's a lot of history in that family. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I'm going to let Greg give a stir to that, to the peppers and the onions, the garlic, the celery. Oh, I wish you could smell those wonderful flavors that are coming through. Absolutely magnificent. While we've got the peppers, we're just going to cook those things, all three of those ingredients, until they soften up a little bit. And while Greg is doing that, I think it's time for us to add our sausage, which is fully cooked, but we're going to add the sausage and we're going to add the chicken as well.
So go ahead and grab that and bring it on over. And set that right there, and I'll go ahead and put the sausage in.
These items are already fully cooked, but we're going to go ahead and just brown these up a little bit, bring out the flavors. Now, the vegetables, I've made the healthy choice, and we're cooking those in a little bit of olive oil.
Stay right there.
But we're going to put the chicken and the andouille, and we're going to brown that up in a little bit of bacon grease. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember mothers who kept the bacon grease. My mother kept hers in a can on the stove.
We kept ours in a can too, but sometimes we kept it on the stove or the windowsill, or sometimes the refrigerator.
Oh, you're way ahead of my family. We just kept ours on the top stove top in a can, and whatever you're cooking, you just take a big old scoop of bacon grease and put it in there. It's going to taste fabulous. All right, Greg is giving a quick stir to that meat right now. It's browning up in the bacon grease, and we've got the vegetables.
They're coming right along.
Are they?
Yes, they are.
Terrific. Oh, and everything smells absolutely wonderful.
You know, one thing that Big Kevin told us was, when you're making gumbo or when you're making jambalaya like we are today, is you can put whatever you want into it to satisfy your own taste buds. You can also add fish, you can also add shrimp, and what else did he say? Whatever your taste, you know, anything. Tomatoes, more onions, hot spices, peppers, whatever they'd like.
I think one of the things we need to remember when we're cooking versus when we're baking, cooking is not a science. Baking is a science, which may be why it doesn't appeal to me quite as much as cooking. I think there's a lot of forgiveness involved in cooking, especially a dish like jambalaya. Because
I think you can always fix the taste.
Absolutely.
From one cooking to another. Let me check this.
All right. We're give that a quick stir again. It smells absolutely wonderful, Mr. Perez. All right. One of the things, we happened to be talking to a dear friend of ours last night who had recently visited New Orleans, and he was talking about the difference between spicy foods and highly seasoned foods. So one of the things he found is that when he was in New Orleans, he thought the foods would be what you and I, the word spicy. He was expecting things that had red pepper flakes or jalapenos perhaps in them. And what he found was that the foods were very highly seasoned, which is a little bit different than foods that are hot and spicy. So that was an interesting clarification he made. Now, one of the things I will tell you is the reason that foods in the South are very highly seasoned or spicy is because until really fairly recently, refrigeration wasn't something that was readily available. My mother tells me that when she was a child growing up, they kept things like dairy products in the creek to try to keep them cooled down.
Right. Sometimes they buried that stuff into the ground and the rocks were out.
They kept things in root cellars. But food was inclined to spoil fairly quickly because of the heat in the South. So they covered up the fact that the foods had gone bad by using Tabasco, a lot of seasoning. So that tradition carries on in Southern cooking, even though, of course, now there's absolutely nothing wrong with food. All right, so how are we doing over there, Greg?
We're doing good, and it's almost there. Now, can you let everybody know some of the other ingredients that also are going into this today? It's got to have some type of juice.
Absolutely. After our peppers, onions, celery, and garlic are fork tender, we're going to add the ingredients. We're going to add the meat to the pot.
Right.
Then we're going to be adding about 2.5 cups of chicken broth to that. We're using chicken broth instead of water because water tastes like nothing, and we want our food to have some flavor to it. So you can use your own chicken broth, which we do sometimes. Or
you can cook the chicken and use the juices afterwards. And one of the reasons, this is another thing too, when you're making this, if you want it to be the texture, if you want it to be a little bit more juicier, you're going to use less rice, more so than what the recipe calls for, correct?
Absolutely. Obviously, this isn't our first rodeo. We've made this dish before, so there's been some successes and some failures, and one of the things we found out is that we wanted to use a little more liquid and a little less rice.
And I don't consider them failures. I consider them, let's see, we just had to readjust.
Exactly.
We just had to readjust
the ingredients a little bit.
Not
rice
a failure.
Is inclined, as you know, rice is inclined to just get bigger and bigger as it sits. If you make this dish up and you want to reheat it for lunch tomorrow, you're going to need to add a little liquid to it. It's going to appear kind of dry to you the next day. So if you have a little bit of chicken broth on hand, or if you're at work and you want to reheat it in the microwave, I suggest you add a little bit of water to this before you stick it in the microwave. We really like to do food prep once a week.
What my wife usually does is we'll cook all the meals for the week on Sunday. So we'll probably cook 2 or 3 different dishes, and then all we have to do is heat them up. And that's a way to do it instead of cooking over the stove every single evening.
Absolutely. I think many of you realize that when you've worked all day, you're tired, and the thought of cooking dinner at 5:30 can be kind of daunting, and what you might be inclined to do is just stop and grab fast food because you're exhausted and you don't have the energy to go to the store. So we have found that if we can do most of our food prep one day a week, then we've got things that are ready to go when we come home from work, and we also have food that we can take to
One of the
work
other
with us.
things that, I didn't mean to cut you off, but one of the other things that I noticed when I purchased everything, that it didn't cost a lot of money to prepare this meal, and when you use the whole batch, the whole recipe, it will serve approximately 12 people. So you would spend approximately $30 to prepare this meal.
I think that's a generous estimate. I was trying to do the math in my head and really breaking it down. I purchased frozen chicken breast in a large bag at the big box store. And so today I had the time to thaw out those chicken breasts, poach them ahead of time, chop them up. I always make more than I need so that I have chicken left over for chicken Caesar salad, chicken fettuccine. I have chicken prepared for chicken enchiladas. And I had chicken that I could use in our gumbo. If we're in a hurry, we'll stop at the store and grab a rotisserie chicken. It only takes a few minutes to debone that chicken, chop it up, and then we are ready to go.
To make chicken enchiladas, you know, you can make chicken tacos. There's so many different meals from that one chicken.
From that one chicken.
Now, I think it's time.
Somebody else has done the work.
I think it's time, stay right there. I think it's time to move this over into this pan.
All right.
So we're taking the chicken and the sausage, it's already been browned, and taking it in and putting it in with all of the veggies that we had sauteed.
Now, what we're going to do next is add a little over 2 cups. I'm going to crank the heat up on this a little bit. And Greg is going to take the chicken broth, and we're going to measure out about 2.5, 3 cups of chicken broth. We're going to get this up to a nice rolling boil.
Now, my suggestion, the rolling boil should be for like 3 or 4 minutes.
And once we've got that rolling boil going,
I'm going to go right a little bit more.
all right. We've got the roll and boil going.
Not yet. It's not quite there.
All right. Now, there are some options at this point. Once we have our stock boiling, our vegetables are tender, we can think about adding stewed tomatoes if you would like a tomato-based jambalaya. The other thing that you can do that I think is gives it an interesting little kick. I'm going to reach in front of you here. All right. And one of the things Big Kevin suggested was putting in a Bloody Mary mix. And it already has quite a bit of spice in it, so I'm just going to add a little bit of this too. And that's just going to give it a little more tomato base.
And it gives it more color, so it's not just a bland looking jambalaya.
All right. Now, Greg's going to add some seasonings
Yes,
to
I
our
am.
liquid. We're using, we like Big Kevin's Bayou blend. I think we're going to figure roughly 2 tablespoons. We like our stuff
There's
quite
one.
a bit of flavor.
There's
These are generous
2
tablespoons. And how about a little seasoning salt as well? We haven't put any salt in it. And I think that rice dishes, like potato dishes, can absorb quite a bit of salt. So we're
exactly.
going to add.
So,
Oh, be generous there, Mr. Perez.
oh, I will.
All right. We're adding seasoning salt to that. You can see how hard it is for me to let him be in charge of this.
How about
All
one more?
Okay, one more. Sounds good.
There we go.
All right. Do you want to put those stewed tomatoes in?
Yeah, I think. And the stewed tomatoes, too, are used for color. So that's another thing that you can also add to this. It also gives it a little bit more taste and flavor.
All right.
And the salt will cover that portion right there. And this is when we have to actually bring it to a boil. But we're going to add 1 cup of rice. If you add too much, then it absorbs all the moisture and it won't cook properly. So I'm going to go ahead and put the cup of rice in now, stir it up. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and let this come to a real heavy, steady boil. And once it comes up to that steady boil, we're going to turn the heat to simmer, put the lid on it, and we're going to let that set for about 25 minutes. And after it sets for 25 minutes, it will be done.
I can't wait. But I'll tell you what, we have one that is already ready to go.
Can you serve us up a bowl?
I certainly can.
Let's
I
do
can't wait
that.
to taste it. I'm going to grab a bowl.
I'll tell you what, once you give me the bowl, and I'll go ahead and serve it.
All right, here we go. I'll get a couple of spoons.
I'll wait till you get back over here.
All right. Greg's got the bowl. I'll take the lid off for you here.
Get back in the camera.
And we're going to see how it tastes. All right. It absolutely smells delicious. I'm ready. I have my spoon.
And here we go. Well, I'll tell you what, before we taste this, let's taste it first.
All right.
I know it's
All right.
hot, so be careful. Oh, this is delicious.
Perfect.
I think we're missing something.
Yes.
There's a drink that goes with this. Let me check it out.
Now you're talking. Let's see what we've got.
We have some land shark. Jimmy Buffett's favorite.
You're my hero. When we're in Louisiana, we love to drink a Beta beer, which is brewed in New Orleans. But we had a little trouble finding that at our local market. True?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to have some Jimmy Buffett land shark. Yum. All right, cheers, Mr. Perez.
Who's the man?
You the man.
Thank you very much, Canby, for being in our kitchen.
Absolutely.
For What is Cooking in Canby.
You're welcome anytime.
Bye now.
Cheers.